Hello, it's Jay here again and welcome to another video. So in this lesson we're actually going to we're not going to do any coding. What we're going to do is just define where our playing area is. So if I hit play, obviously there's no visible boundaries of where the play area should be. So let's just stop that there. We need to define something. So I've created two textures here. And all I'm going to do is just set alpha to its transparency. So a little note about these textures. The lines are a lot thicker than they need to be. I've done that for the purpose of this first video for demonstration. When I've got some time, I will do one with thinner lines, so it's more wireframe. But for now, let's actually come up to the assets. Game objects, 3D objects, and what we want is the quad. So let's just reset the transform. So this is the quad. Now, the problem a lot of people have with quads is that the texture's only visible from one side. I'll show you how to fix that, but basically we need to scale it first. And I'm going to have, because we're using 3D objects, we're using cubes which are 1 by 1, and I want an area of 10 by 10. We can just set the scale in the X and Y to be 10. So it's still in camera then. Let's change to the quad, so 10, 10. So that gives us our quad, and as you can see we have a plain texture, but we can't see that from the other side. So I'm just going to drag and drop this texture on there. Just set the rendering mode to transparent so you can see the issue. And it's a simple fix. What we're going to do is actually just come to the shader, legacy shaders, and we want alpha blended. So particles, alpha blended, and then the texture will show on both sides. And you can see what I mean about the lines being too thick if I start the game. So, of course, I'm going to make these much thinner eventually. So, it's just stopped there because we've hit the mesh collider. Let's just disable that. And we'll just collapse that down. I'm just going to disable it for now, not remove. And what we're going to do is start to reposition. And if we wait for the actual blocks to begin to intersect the quad, you can see the issue. So what we need to do is just move it to half a step, so 0.5 on the X. And for the Y value, let's just in fact stop that there because we'll need to redo that again. So 0.5, we'll need a 0.5 for the Y, but I also want to move it up a bit. So rather than moving it up half the size, which would be 5, I'm just going to minus 0.5 off, giving me a value of 4.5. Let's hit play again. And now if I pause the game, and we can see that the block is centered in the square there. Obviously it's still half a step out on the z-axis. And because I want to move this forward a bit, I'm going to do the same trick, but this time it's going to be minus 4.5. And of course now we are if I just change that to minus 0.5, as long as it's 0.5, as you can see, the blocks perfectly intersect the quad. Obviously, as soon as I stop that, it will change back to 4.5. So, you're probably asking, why a quad and not a plane? You can use a plane, that's perfectly fine. You can resolve the mesh issue. Oh, it's already set to legacy particles alpha blend. I was just about to say, yeah, you can solve the same issue by setting the same shader. But here's the thing, a quad is only made up of 2 triangles. And a plane is made of 200. So that means that the plane is a lot more expensive on the hardware to render. Now, sometimes that is necessary, but not for not for this game. The way the game is this is just going to be a flat, simple texture. A quad will work just as well. And again, we've gone from rendering 200 triangles to only 2. May not be important in a game of this scale, but it's still, there's no point in rendering things that you don't need to, and you may be building this for lower end devices. Some of you may be doing it for Android phones, and maybe you want everybody to be able to play it, even those with older phones. So that is the reason we are using quads. And I'm going to, in fact, I'll duplicate it first. So I just want to duplicate this quad. And what I'm going to do is just reposition. So we want obviously 90 degrees. And let's have a look. We'll set that to 0. So we're at minus 0.5. And we'll try the Z at minus 0.5. I have to do that. There we go, plus 0.5 actually, so 0.5. And we'll rename this to bottom grid. So we'll select this quad again and duplicate it. And we're just going to reposition. So we're just changing the Z position to 5.5. Let's rename that again. I'll just use backgrid for that. And now we'll just do this two sides. So again, we'll just duplicate. We'll spin it 90 on the y-axis. And now we just need to move this about. So we'll change the Z to 0.5. And the X to minus 4.5. And I'll just come back to this one, the first one we did. And that's going to be front grid. And the quad for the side, let's duplicate that again. And all we're going to do is change the X to 5.5. And then we'll change this to right grid. And of course for this one it's going to be the left grid. And what we'll do is we'll come to game object, we'll create an empty one. We'll just reset that so it's at 0. And let's give this a name of in fact, we'll just use grid. And then I'm going to select all the other objects. And I'm going to drag and drop those onto the grid. And if we hit play, we now have a grid. Now, you can see what I mean now with saying that this texture is too strong. The lines are too thick. It's blocking too much view. I completely agree. However, as I said at the start of the video, I've just made these this thick for the moment, just so it's easy to see why we do this video. I will change them to a very, very fine lined grid texture. And once I've changed that, I shall make those available for certain tier Patreons. But we'll leave it there for now for this video. As always, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope to see you next time. But until then, as always, bye for now.